Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished young entrepreneur from Bangalore, India, Mr. Ankit Alok Bagaria. Ankit, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ashutosh. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Ankit is the co-founder and chief executive officer of Loopworm, which is an insect biotechnology company. So, Ankit, before we talk about Loopworm, tell me about your journey and what was your inspiration to start Loopworm? And then I want to follow up with that is what is insect biotechnology?
So, come from a town called Jalgaon in Maharashtra. Did my schooling there. Went to Kota, did my coaching, and eventually went on to do chemical engineering at IIT Roorkee. I did a dual degree course there with a specialization in computer-aided process plant design. Loopworm is my second startup. I've always been very fascinated with startup, and the journey in the startup or say entrepreneurship industry basically started when I did a couple of internships with seniors from my college who had their own startups, one in the solar space, one in the logistics space, and saw them working, got very fascinated. Then I decided that I can start something on my own. I've always been very pro waste management and agriculture guy. I feel that given the population of India, these two sectors are going to be evergreen.
Okay.
And I feel that we have still touched the primary space in these sectors. We have just deployed supply chain or logistic solutions. We have not value added to that extent. Now, once the value addition piece comes in both waste management and say agri-tech, no new opportunities would come up. And that is where first I started AgroSnap when I was in my sophomore year, which was basically capturing images of the leaf to determine fertilizer inputs to the soil. Did it for around 2 years. It didn't work out. And then eventually in my fifth year, I basically started Loopworm with my co-founder, Abhi. We are both batchmates from IIT Roorkee, and it has been 4 years now since I've been doing it. At Loopworm, I majorly look into R&D strategy, business development. I look into fundraising aspects as well. So this is a bit about me and our journey at Loopworm. Coming to your next question, insect biotechnology. It's sort of a new term. A few people call entobiotech or entomobiotech as well, because entomology is the study of insects. But insect biotech just conveys it. So that is why I prefer using insect biotech instead. Insect biotechnology is utilizing insect as a bioresource.
Okay.
When I say a bioresource is something which produces something for you, or you can process it to get something. Now, where the biotech piece comes in is you can do n number of things with insects because they are a treasure trove of biomolecules. They are rich in proteins, fats, a lot of entomoceuticals, if you can say that. And that is where the term insect biotechnology is very close to me, because what I feel is insect has not been used to its potential to make these ingredients, to extract these biomolecules. And when we do so with the help of biotechnology principles, new opportunities would come up, and that is where we want to be.
Amazing. And Ankit, what makes insects a superior source of proteins and fats compared to traditional sources?
So insects, if you look at what they feed, so what you feed to any species is what you reap in the end. Insects have been consumers, or they consume or devour organic byproducts and waste. So if you look at it, they know how to extract value from random things, whether it is organic biomasses or it is food waste. So they have been able to convert it into amino acids and then into proteins and store it in their bodies. What makes it superior is the amino acid profile. So we have essential amino acids, non-essential amino acids, and semi-essential amino acids. So the amino acid profiles and its digestibility determines what a superior protein is or what a comparatively inferior protein is. Now, to just take examples, silk is 98% protein, but we cannot consume it
Right.
because it doesn't have the right digestibility and the amino acid profiles which we require as humans or as mammals in general. Same goes for hair, right? So hair is basically almost proteins, but we cannot consume it. We are not going to get much nutrition out of it. And that is where, with the digestibility of almost 80 to 90%, depending on the species of insects that you are considering, it is one of the most superior sources of proteins which can be used, but it is not being used evidently.
And you just gave, two examples. One was silkworm, second was hair. What are some of the superior sources of protein when you come to insects? Just give me an example of maybe two or three of them.
Yeah, so I basically took the example of silk. So silk is what we wear is not a superior source of protein from food angle, but silkworm on the other angle, right? Silkworm pupae or silkworm larvae are one of the most nutritious sources
I
of
see.
protein. So silk is extracted from cocoons.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a pupa inside, and so there's like a small quail egg size cocoon, which you basically dip it in hot water and extract the silk out of it. But if you look at the pupa inside, it's a treasure trove of nutrition,
Wow.
which almost 55% proteins, 32% fats. Like the total is 87% with just proteins and fats, and a little bit of ash and fibers. So it's basically a superfood. If you look at it, 100 grams of it can basically satisfy 75% of your daily nutritional requirement. In terms of proteins, will give you all the vitamins and minerals that you need, and also all the essential fats that you need. So
Amazing.
it's like everything gets utilized with just 100 grams. Just one example. Yes.
Amazing. And what is the process? And I don't want any technical, secrets,
Yeah.
but what is the process of converting, organic waste into valuable products using insects?
So the process is pretty simple. You basically, just like any other animal, insect agriculture or insect farming is also a feedstock driven industry. So ultimately, what you would feed to the insect gets reflected in their growth, in their yield, in their mortality, in the nutritional value that they contain. Now, if we want to industrialize insect farming, you have to optimize the feedstock that you give it to them. Like just like we did it for the fish industry, especially the shrimps industry, 80% formalized based on animal feed. Same goes for poultry. That the same way you basically make a feedstock for the insects, like taking inspiration from what they eat in nature. Now, silkworms, say for example, eat mulberry leaves. So what you can do is you can basically reverse engineer a mulberry leaf from artificial sources. Same is like with black soldier fly larvae, another insect that we work on, which is a polyphagous insect. Polyphagous meaning it can devour a number of substances. So what you do is you create a mixture, right? The right amount of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, minerals, what the insect would require to grow properly. But you like take it from food processing industries or farm wastes or even municipal waste or restaurants, where you basically take all of these, you create basically a cocktail of this with the right pH and the moisture content, the nutritional value, and then you feed it to the insect in a controlled way, like maybe twice a day, maybe thrice a day.
Right.
That is how you cultivate these insects. And once these insects are cultivated, you separate them from the leftover substrate. It can be the substrate along with some byproducts which are left. And like you separate it from them, and then you basically clean them and process them further.
Oh, amazing. And now, from a consumer perspective, what are some of the challenges or concerns you have heard from potential consumers?
So we are not trying to sell it to humans.
Okay.
Humans can come in much later, but there is a huge potential and scope there because almost 25% of the world, 2 billion people globally consume insects. Now, yes, a large population of Asians, Southeast Asia crowd, China, parts of South America there. But if you look at it from a population perspective, yes, they are getting nutrition from it, and then yes, they are surviving. They've been consuming more than 3,000 species of insects. Even in India, in the Northeast, we have more than 200 varieties of insects being consumed as a delicacy.
Wow.
So it sells at 3 times the price of chicken in the Northeast,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yes, humans have a lot of potential, but like getting into the behavior changing ball game is it takes time, and we don't want to do that. What we are proposing instead is that we replace the conventional feed ingredients derived from animal or plant sources
Mm-hmm.
with insect-based ingredients for shrimp feeds, or in fish feeds or poultry feeds, which is chicken and quail and ducks. And that is where the perception is much better because insects are the natural food for fish and
Exactly.
birds. The farmers know it, the nutritionists know it. So it comes down to what you are offering, at what scales, at what price, and with what quality consistency. And then it becomes easier for them to accept it because, insects, like
Very
food.
well said. Very well
So yeah,
said.
that
Very
helps.
good. And I have seen, for example, cockroaches in Thailand and red ants in Mexico
Yep.
being sold as peanuts that we would probably may eat in India.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
moving on, Ankit, uh, which are some of the insects that you primarily use in your products, and why did you select these?
So we use silkworm pupae
Mm,
and black soldier fly larvae in our products. The products remain the same. It's a protein concentrate that we make out of them, approximately 60% proteins, and a fat oil, which we basically extract from them. And both of them goes as ingredients into animal feeds. Why these insects? So coming to silkworms first. So if you look at the global silk industry, 80% is with China,
mm,
16% is with India.
mm,
So these two countries basically dominate the entire space.
mm,
So there is a huge quantities of silkworm pupae post
mm,
reeling which is available,
mm,
and which was like underutilized or not utilized at all
mm,
in different parts of India. So
mm,
what we did was we established a reverse supply chain for
mm,
it, maintaining its quality, and then we developed a process to extract these proteins and fats from them.
mm,
So silkworm became an obvious choice because it was there.
mm,
Good opportunity for us to get into the insect protein, insect fats market. Um, the second is black soldier fly larvae. Now, if you look at choosing any insect or anything that you want to cultivate, it should be a non-pest, non-invasive,
right.
and harmless species.
Mm,
So these larvae or the fly of these larvae, they don't have any biting or stinging parts.
mm,
So it's completely safe. They will only like lay their eggs. Yes, they are native to India. One, there are natural strains of black soldier fly larvae in India.
mm, mm,
That is another thing because you cannot get foreign strains in India because it disturbs the ecology.
mm,
So that was there obviously, but it will only lay eggs on decomposing material.
mhm,
It won't touch your fresh apple.
mm,
If that apple is decomposing, then it becomes, food for the black soldier fly larvae.
right,
So
right.
it cannot act as a pest since
Mm,
we are an agrarian country where we store a lot of our grains, a lot of our fruits and vegetables. We cannot afford an insect
mm,
which, like, if something goes wrong, becomes heavily populated in a certain area and starts becoming a pest.
mm,
So that was another reason where we had 6 insects under consideration.
mm.
Crickets, cockroaches, very invasive.
Yeah.
We had mealworms and superworms, which are pests
Mm,
in granaries. They basically attack your oats and wheat and atta and everything.
mm,
And then you have grasshoppers and locusts. And like we have had this incident a couple of years ago where
mm.
desert locusts created a havoc in the entire North India.
Correct.
So again, pests for our crops. So ultimately, it came down to the black soldier fly larvae because you can feed them restaurant waste, slaughterhouse waste, like municipal solid waste, segregated
Mm,
food processing industry byproducts, dairy
mm,
waste,
mm.
n number of things. So
Amazing.
there's huge potential of growing them, and they are
Hmm.
harmless.
Amazing. And are there any regulatory norms or challenges that you face when it comes to insect biotechnology?
Yes, there are. So there is not a clear yes or a no in this space. Like for certain things, if you're, say, for example, bioengineering them or genetically modifying them, yes, there are rules established and there is a set and a series of processes that you need to go through to do that. But when it comes to mass cultivation, there are rules with sericulture, which is silkworm farming. There are rules in apiculture, which is honeybee farming. And then the government also promotes vermicomposting with the help of red worms and the, what do you say, earthworms. So like for these 3 4 insects, it's there. There are a couple of model insects which people use for research. But when it comes to new species, there is no clear stance. Yes, the government have supported a number of startups in this space with grants because they see the potential. It actually solves two problems for them. One is the waste management problem, and the second is the feed ingredient problem. So it's a like valid solution, and so like ticks the boxes from various places, but we don't have the rules and the regulations which says like this is the way you do it and this is the way you cannot do it. And like that is bit of a hassle because attracting money in a space which is still not formalized enough becomes difficult. So yes, we would definitely love to work with the government and come up with policies here so that it gets promoted, but it gets promoted in the right way.
Fascinating. And tell me about the role of technology um, in and bioscience in enhancing your own production processes.
Extremely. I'll just give you an example. When we started with the black soldier fly larvae, um, we used to get a kg of larvae um, with almost like 10 times the food. So 10% efficiency. Like 2.5 years later, we were getting it at 4 times the food.
Amazing.
So by using these principles of bioconversion and bioprocessing, we were able to develop a feedstock for the black soldier fly larvae, which was 2.5 times more efficient. Just a small example there. Second would be like extracting this valuable products from the insects in itself. Now they are not oil seeds, they are not meat as well. They are somewhere in between. So if you look at the nutritional profile of an insect, it does not have as much ash content, which, say, for example, a fish or a chicken or a beef would have. It, but at the same time, it like it does not behave like the oil seed as well, which is a lot of carbohydrates and proteins, whereas the insects are carbohydrates and fats for the oil seeds, whereas the insects would be fats and proteins. So they are somewhere in between. And like understanding where the fat is stored, understanding how the protein complexes are, by going into the basics, helped us develop the process to extract the oil from them. So that was very much important. At the same time, you use any bioresource. You can do a series of physical, chemical, microbial, which is using bacteria or funguses, or biochemical using enzymes. So these are a combination of like processes which you can use to develop a number of products. So if you consider milk, you ferment it, you get curd. You put enzymes in it, you get cheese. You put citric acid in it, you get paneer. Right? So what we have done here is, again, you like kept insect in the center, and we are developing these series of processes where it would help us develop better value added products for different industries where we can use insects.
Amazing. So I have time for two more questions for you. My next question is, how do you as an organization contribute to sustainability in the food and cosmetics industries?
So, for both of these industries, you require a lot of ingredients. And we are basically a sustainable alternative insect derived ingredient company. Now, why do I say sustainable? Because, like I said, insects consume a lot of food waste.
Right.
They are cold blooded species, so they don't require a lot of energy and also water. So, they are very efficient converters of these food waste. So what And if you look at the definition of waste, waste is something for which we have not found a value of. The moment we found it as a feedstock for insect, it is no longer a waste, it is a bioresource.
Right.
So the waste is now becoming food for the insect. The insect is in turn becoming an ingredient which can be used in the feed industry for the animals who are giving us food, or say for example cosmetics, where again ingredients which can be like where like it can be used in the cosmetics, and it is much more sustainable because the initial value chain starts from food waste, which we are basically consuming depending on the insect 4 to 10 times like its weight.
Very interesting.
So it's a very efficient food waste conversion cycle, beating, I would say, biogas generation and composting both.
Very interesting. And my last question to you, how do you see insect biotech technology changing the landscape of nutraceutical, biopharmaceutical industries? And where do you see this going in the next few years?
So if you look at the history of insects, it started as a biopharmaceutical and a nutraceutical in China and Asian countries.
Okay.
Cockroaches were used to treat respiratory diseases because of the iodine it has. Silkworm pupae or the larvae were used to solve for fatty liver issues. It has an anti-diabetic or anti-obesity agent as well, which can be leveraged. So like people started using it in say for example, if I coin it Chinese Ayurveda per se, but it has stayed away from the rest of the countries because of maybe behavior or religious reasons. Now, so there is enough potential which people have identified for more than 5,000 years with insects now. It's just that it got pushed back because there's an icky factor. A few, like most of the insects were considered pests. They were causing harm to our crops and to our food. So it got pushed back. So using insects or growing insects became a taboo.
Yeah.
Right, and that is how it got pushed back. Where we see a lot of potential going ahead would be first, somebody like us, right, or global players like us would have to create a market for insect based products. Once we create a market for insect based products, people would be up for growing insects. So insect agriculture cannot like have its mark without insect processing.
Right.
Insect processing, insect based product having a market would have to be established first, and then insect agriculture will go up. And that is where the journey in the next 10 years would be a little difficult, where we as entrepreneurs or like companies like Loopworm are trying to create that market. Once we have created those markets, insect agriculture is just going to boom, and it is going to exponentially boom because like we have 70 million tons of food waste. We have more than 500 million tons of crop biomass, and this is just India. So we can like do insect agriculture in a huge scale, but like nobody is going to do it until unless the products are made.
Very well said. Very well
So
said.
that is how it is, like
Yeah.
what we see. Insect biotech will have products first. Agriculture would basically come in later, and it will just explode in the next 20 years.
Amazing. Ankit, on that note, I just can't, I mean, I can only say that what an incredible discussion this has been. I mean, I had never imagined there is so much science that is there, and there's so much happening in the world of insect biotechnology. Thank you for speaking to me about Loopworm. Thank you for telling me about so many different aspects of using insects as a major source of protein for animals to start with, and hopefully human beings at some stage in the future. I learned many new things from you today. Thank you. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ashutosh. It was glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.